I never imagined I'd become the kind of woman who would issue a bedroom ultimatum in public. But desperation has a way of pushing you into versions of yourself you don't recognize. My name is Alara, and until that night, I thought I was fighting for my relationship. I didn't realize I was standing at its end. I'd been with Miles for almost 4 years. He wasn't loud or flashy, but he was steady. At least, that's what I told myself. In the beginning, we couldn't keep our hands off each other. Late nights, lazy mornings, stolen kisses in grocery store aisles. It felt easy, natural, like something that didn't need explaining. Somewhere along the way, though, the warmth faded. Not all at once, slowly, quietly. The kind of quiet that sneaks up on you until you're living inside it. At first, it was just tired excuses. Work stress, early mornings, a long week. I accepted them because that's what understanding partners do. But weeks turned into months, and the space between us grew heavier. I started feeling like a roommate instead of a lover. I tried to initiate closeness, and he'd pull away with a distracted smile, promising later. Later became never. I questioned myself constantly. Was I asking for too much? Was I being dramatic? I even blamed my own confidence, wondering if maybe I wasn't desirable anymore. Still, I stayed quiet. I didn't want to be the nagging girlfriend obsessed with intimacy. But silence has a cost. It builds pressure, and pressure eventually explodes. The night it happened, we were out with friends at a small rooftop bar. Soft music, warm lights, laughter all around us. Couples leaning into each other, hands resting comfortably where they belonged. I noticed how naturally other people touched, how effortless it looked. I glanced at Miles, sitting inches away, yet feeling worlds apart. Something inside me snapped, not in anger, but in exhaustion. I leaned closer and whispered that we needed to talk later. He nodded without looking at me, eyes glued to his phone. That dismissal stung more than I expected. When the conversation drifted to relationships, someone joked about keeping the spark alive. Everyone laughed. I didn't. The words were already forming before I could stop them. I said his name, louder than I meant to. I told him I couldn't keep living in a relationship without intimacy. I said it calmly, but my voice carried. Too many people heard. I said we needed to fix it or I didn't know how much longer I could stay. It wasn't meant to be a threat. It was a plea, a line drawn in vulnerability, not power. If this moment already feels heavy, take a second to tap the like button so this story can reach others who might feel the same quiet frustration. The table went silent. Miles didn't look embarrassed. He didn't look angry either. He looked done. He asked me, quietly but clearly, if I was giving him an ultimatum. I tried to explain, to soften it, to take the edge off my own words. But once something is said out loud, you can't pull it back. He stood up, placed some cash on the table, and said we should talk outside. We didn't make it that far. Right there, under the string lights and curious stares, he told me this wasn't how adults handled problems, that he wouldn't be pressured or shamed into intimacy, that if I needed to threaten him publicly, then we weren't right for each other. And just like that, he said we were done. No raised voice, no drama, just a clean cut. I felt my chest hollow out as he walked away, leaving me frozen in place. Friends avoided my eyes. Someone touched my arm, but it felt distant. If you've ever watched a moment unravel faster than you could process it, share in the comments what that felt like for you. I went home alone that night, replaying every second, wondering if I'd crossed an unforgivable line, or if I'd simply said the truth too loudly. Type the word silence in the comments if you believe unspoken resentment can be more destructive than harsh honesty. By morning, the shock settled into something heavier, regret mixed with clarity. Because as painful as it was, a part of me realized something had been broken long before that bar. If this story resonates with someone you know who is struggling to be heard, consider sharing it thoughtfully. It might help them feel less alone. I didn't lose him that night. I lost the illusion that staying quiet would ever save us. And that realization was only the beginning. Before the story continues, let me ask you, was I wrong for speaking up? Or was the timing the real mistake? Leave your thoughts below. And if you want to follow stories that explore uncomfortable truths about love, communication, and consequences. Make sure to like, comment with your perspective, and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. The days after the breakup moved strangely. Like time had lost its rhythm. Mornings came too fast, nights dragged on too long. Miles didn't block me, didn't lash out, didn't reach back. That silence felt louder than any argument we'd ever had. I kept replaying the moment in my head, searching for the exact second where everything tipped. Was it the tone, the timing, or the fact that I finally said out loud what I'd been swallowing for over a year? Friends tried to comfort me, but their words bounced right off. Some said I was brave for speaking up. Others said I should have handled it privately. What none of them understood was how lonely it feels to be unwanted by someone who still claims to love you. That kind of loneliness doesn't show bruises. It just sits inside you, quietly convincing you to accept less than you deserve. A week later, Miles finally texted. Just one message. He said he wasn't angry, but he felt exposed, cornered. He admitted intimacy had felt like pressure for a long time, not connection. Reading that hurt more than I expected. Because I never wanted obligation. I wanted desire. I wanted to feel chosen, not tolerated. We met once more, not to reconcile, but to close the chapter properly. Sitting across from him in a quiet cafe, I noticed how calm he seemed. Not relieved, not heartbroken, just settled. That's when I understood something painful but necessary. I had been fighting for a version of us that only existed in my head. He had already emotionally checked out long before I spoke up. He told me the ultimatum wasn't the real reason he ended things. It was the moment he realized how far apart we'd grown. He said if it hadn't happened that night, it would have happened eventually. Hearing that stung, but it also untied a knot inside me, because it meant I wasn't as powerful or as destructive as I'd been telling myself. Walking home afterward, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel ashamed either. I felt clear. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't negotiating my needs in my own head. I wasn't rehearsing how to ask for affection without sounding needy. I wasn't waiting for crumbs of attention and calling it love. I started noticing how often I'd shrunk myself in that relationship, how I'd measured my worth by his interest, how I'd mistaken patience for loyalty and silence for maturity. The truth was uncomfortable. Staying quiet hadn't protected us. It had only delayed the inevitable. The public ultimatum wasn't graceful. I won't pretend it was. But it was honest. And honesty, even when messy, has a way of clearing space for growth. I stopped seeing that night as the moment I lost him and started seeing it as the moment. I stopped abandoning myself. Months later, I can still picture the rooftop lights, the pause in the air, the way his chair scraped the floor when he stood up. But the memory doesn't haunt me anymore. It teaches me. It reminds me that love without closeness becomes obligation. And obligation eventually turns into resentment. I don't regret wanting intimacy. I regret believing that wanting it made me demanding. Relationships don't survive on shared routines alone. They survive on feeling desired, seen, and safe to speak even when the words are uncomfortable. If I could speak to the woman I was before that night, I wouldn't tell her to stay quiet. I'd tell her to speak sooner. Softer, maybe, but sooner. Because waiting until you're desperate often means the conversation arrives too late. Miles and I were never meant to end gently. Some relationships don't fade out, they snap. And sometimes, that snap is the only way forward. I didn't give a public bedroom ultimatum because I wanted control. I gave it because I wanted truth. And when I finally got it, I had to face the cost. Losing him hurt, but losing myself would have hurt more.